All right, so welcome to another Camaro restoration, and this is my '78 Camaro. For those who are newly joining us, if you want to get caught up on the videos, there's 20 plus videos on my channel. There's also 70 plus videos of a Jeep CJ7, '83 Jeep CJ7 build that I did, and up to now we've really been disassembling, working on the front of the car. Finally got all that put together, got the car back on skates, spun it around in the basement, and now working on ripping apart the back half of the car, the rear axle, leaf springs, sway bar, shocks, gas tank, fuel lines, brake lines, all that stuff. So all that stuff has to come out so I can get to the bottom of the car, clean it, paint it. And we're also going to rebuild this GM 10 bolt here, and I think that's going to be, well, I know it's going to be a lot easier to do outside of the car and certainly not up under there. All right, so if you look underneath the car there, you can tell that, hey, there's no rear axle in the car. So this has already been accomplished, and I'm kind of filming this after the fact, but this video is going to walk you through the steps that I took to get all that stuff that I just named off out of the car. So let's get into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the video. All right, so here's the gas tank, obviously, and this is where I'm going to start. And this really doesn't look too bad other than the size of it and the fact that my jack doesn't quite get there. And I think it's about half full of gas, so those things are working to my disadvantage. But what's working to my advantage is there's one screw there, one down there, so there's just two that hold these straps on. And then all my fuel lines, I can easily disconnect right there, so I don't have to chase those all throughout the car. Be easier to do once I get the gas tank out for that. And then my filler neck, I'm leaving the gas cap on intentionally. I know you can't see that, but it's up in there to try to catch this thing, because I know when I took this out of my Jeep, it was quite a pain. Not this, obviously not this tank, but when I took the Jeep gas tank out of my Jeep, it didn't go very well, and it fell and hit the ground. So hopefully this one will come out a little bit easier. I wish I had an extra set of hands, some help, but I got to get this thing out so we can take a look at what's underneath, which I think is going to be pretty clean. And then we can move on to trying to get this rear axle, leaf springs, shocks, traction bar, all that stuff cleaned out of the back end of this car. So let's give this thing a shot and see how it goes. All right, so I ended up just cutting these fuel lines here, but they're out of the way, and now it's not going to get caught on that when I start to lower the gas tank down. And the reason I cut them is because obviously all this stuff is really old, and those things they're not in great shape, and I'm gonna actually run new fuel lines anyways, so I won't be using any of this stuff. All right, so it's on to, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this ground as well, right here. See if I can show you that a little better. Let me get my light. Cut that ground wire right there, and then undo those two bolts. And in theory, this thing should come down. It's gonna sit nicely on that jack stand right there, and I'm going to lower it down real nice and gentle. That's the plan. Let's see how it works. Okay, so that actually didn't come out bad. Kind of went according to plan, which is kind of hard to believe for me. But yeah, gas tank's out. All right, so here's where the gas tank was, and as I was hoping for, and as I kind of expected based on how the trunk looks on the inside, here's the bottom of the car without the gas tank, and it's pretty clean. I don't see any rust, any evidence of any patches or anything like that. Really, really clean under here. This is going to be real quick and easy to clean up and get painted once I get to that point. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is get these straps out, and then I'm going to just kind of look around and just kind of study, you know, what I need to do to get this whole rear end out. Obviously shocks, and it's just unbolting some things, but I just want to be careful to do it in the right order, and hopefully this thing will come out all at once without any problems. kind of my plan of attack down here is to first get out the, I got to get the brake lines off, and I've got to get the remaining gas lines off, and there's a line going across the top of the back of the car right there, up there. Got to get that off. It's kind of part of the fuel line mixture, but it goes off to the left where the other two lines go down the right side of the frame. I've got most of them disconnected. Well, I've got them halfway taken off, the brake lines and the fuel lines when I did the front of the car, but they're still hanging down. So I've got to chase those down, get those out of the way. Then I'm going to tackle this sway bar, at least disconnect it from the frame, and then I'll be able to just take off the shocks and then drop the leaf spring hangers, and hopefully that those usually are where you get some problems, particularly with these back ones. And hopefully I will not have those problems, and I'll be able to get this whole rear end assembly out all in one piece. I know I'm going to have to take the tires off, obviously, to clear the fenders, but I'm going to leave them on there for now, just kind of as a safeguard. And I'll put my jack under the pumpkin, and then when I get it all released, I'll jack it back up and take the tires off, lower it down, and then bring it out. So that's the plan. Let me start with these lines, and I'm probably not going to film this because it's just going to be kind of tedious and kind of boring, but I'll be right back. All right, so I finally got all the brake lines and fuel lines out. Not too terribly difficult. They just kind of got hung up in the emergency brake cable, which I've not disconnected yet, but so I've got to do that. I already went ahead and disconnected these, the sway bar where it attaches up to the subframe. That really released the rear end quite a bit. I was surprised at how much that was holding it up with these brackets right here. So those brackets there. And that's how much it dropped. I mean, it moves a little bit, but that's how much it dropped from here to here when I got this thing, when I got the screws off, the bolts off of this. So I think making pretty good progress. I've got to disconnect the shocks, the emergency brake cable, and then I can start working on these things that might be a little dark, but the leaf spring hangers up front. It's pretty interesting. There's only really 2 bolts, and I'll show them to you, but 2 bolts that hold the whole front leaf spring hanger in, and they look to be in good shape, so I'm hoping those will come out easy. And these ones, not sure. I'm probably going to hit these things with some PB Blaster and kind of let them sit for a minute, sit for a day or so, and see if that helps, because they look a little rough. But once I do that, this rear end should just drop out. I don't think it's going to be that graceful, but I think it'll just drop down, and then I can get it out and tear it apart, because we're going to completely rebuild that rear axle. All right, so next I'm going to disconnect the emergency brakes and disconnect the shocks, and then I'll catch you guys up, and then I'll show you these spring perches in a little bit more detail. All right, so I want to show you guys something with these emergency brake cables. And what I'm trying to do is leave them attached to the drum. When I pull out the rear end, I want this piece to come out with it. And I guess you could go in and take apart your brakes and detach it that way, but I just thought this was the better way to do it. And there's a little, it's a little bit of a pain. So this is the part that attaches to the little circle clip, and I should have showed that to you, that meets up to the, where it wides off from the front to the rear. And if you loosen the screw on the, you'll see the big long bolt up there, you can get enough slack in this line to pop that end out. And then once you've got the end out, it's goes into the frame on this side and comes out the other side. And on the other side, it's held on by this thing here, this little clip, and it goes just like that, where there's a bracket. And so you've got to pop this piece off, which I did, and then once you get to that point, so let me back up. This is on the inside of the frame rail. And then on the outside of the frame rail, and you can see, I don't know if that'll show up in the, where that bracket was pushing up against that, but then you've got a bracket that looks like this that's held on and keeps tension on that thing to where you can't pull it through. So you've got to get this off, and these are 2 13 millimeter bolts or screws of all sizes, 13 millimeter. But oddly enough, it says 13 millimeter on it if you can read the top of the bolt head. And I had to get a one of these guys right there with a 13 on it to get it off, because you're kind of going into your car like this. So if anybody's trying to remove their emergency brake cable to drop a rear end or do any repairs on it, this was the way to get it out and fish it out through the frame. And now I've just got the loose cable here, and now when I drop the rear end, it'll come out with the rear end. All right, so all I have left to do before I unbolt the leaf springs is get the shocks out. You guys know there's 2 bolts up top there, and then there's one down there on the bottom. So I'm going to get these shocks out next, and then I'll be ready to unbolt the leaf springs. And like I said, I'll show you the mounts up here in a little more detail, and we'll get after it, see if we can get this rear axle out of here. All right, so I finally got those big clunky shocks out of there. Those are old school air shocks. They aired up, but they wouldn't hold air. But anyways, they're out, and that's a 9/16 on the bottom, 1/2 inch, the 2 1/2-inch screws on the very top. So with those out of the way, I am ready to try to drop these leaf springs and get this rear axle out of here. All right, so on the last leg of this journey, and last thing to do is take one of those 2 bolts out up there, and I think I've already kind of tried this one a little bit, and it's not budging. So I think I'm gonna work on this one, because I can get my impact on that one, and then hopefully have enough room to hit it out, which I think we will, and that should drop that part of the leaf spring. Back here on the front perch, this is the front of the rear leaf springs. You've got a screw there, or a bolt, one there, and then there's one up in there. Oh, you can see it pretty good. So I said earlier in the video there's 2, but there's actually 3. I didn't see that one under there, and those look pretty, they look like they want to come out, or they'll come out pretty easily. So hopefully that won't be too bad on this end. So essentially 4 bolts on each side is really all that's holding that rear end in. Sorry about all the weird angles here. I'm under the car, and shouldn't be too bad. All right, so that nut came off fairly easy. Now I just need to see if I can knock it through and knock this part, the rear part of the spring, free. All right, so here's where we're at. These back ones, as I've heard, are going to be a pain, and I got the nut off here with my impact, jammed a screwdriver in there, a Phillips head, to try to knock out that top bolt, and all I did was deflect off the bolt and get my screwdriver stuck in there. And then this nut that was on there, I got a 11/16 with a pry bar and some PB blaster, and I got that to break free. And I'm pretty sure we can just maneuver around that shackle now and get this thing off. But look at the heads on these things. They're kind of just like carriage bolts, so they don't have bolt heads. It's just an odd design. So nothing short of a pain to get these rear ones. That's kind of what I heard, and honestly kind of what I was expecting. And we still have that side to do, but the fronts, all the fronts are disconnected, so all we got to do really is finish this side right here and knock that one out. And I say we because Matt's over here, and he came in after I've done everything except like the last remaining bolt.
Impeccable timing.
Great timing. So you might hear the dogs in the background huffing and puffing, at least Jake. But we're going to get into this and see if we can get this thing, get these bolts out and get that rear end. I know that light's kind of right there, but here we go. All right, so Matt gets here, and within 2 minutes, just works this bolt free. And
it's like a jar of pickles.
Yeah,
you did most of the work.
I did all the work, man. I did like 99.5%.
If you did all the work, it would have been out.
That's true. That's a good point. So the passenger side is done, and now we got to get the. I'm going to let Matt try to break that bolt free. These things are a pain, and you see how they're kind of. Let me get away from that light. Kind of set up like a carriage bolt. Very different, very unique. When are they coming down?
Hey, we're being photobombed. Hold on.
Get out of there, Casey. Ooh, it's on that jack stand.
Hold on.
Hang on, you don't want to move that one.
Hold on.
All right, she's coming down. We're stuck a little bit on the rear jack stand.
Only got, I mean, how much do you need, James? All right, we'll come out at an angle then. Get 3 years around.
All right, he's clear.
Clear.
John and his maze of jack stands.
Hey, Shane's the one that put those in there.
Oh, trust me.
Do you know there's a shortage of jack stands right now?
Yeah, because I got them all.
Hey, I tried to get him to use 2, but he's like, no.
So check this out.
Carmine trim, it had red interior.
Yeah, no, it's a white car with red interior.
Oh, yeah?
That one?
And that's what I found above the gas tank. And I believe California, which is supposed to be a California car. Carmine trim.
We pulled the motor out.
Yeah.
California car.
So there is an advantage to the California car. That's pretty cool, but that's all that I could salvage from right above the gas tank for the build sheet. That was it. All right, so that is what I would call mission accomplished. We got all the stuff out from underneath the car that we wanted to, and that kind of paves the way for me to get under there and get that thing wire wheeled down and cleaned up. Not looking forward to that at all. When I did the front, it's extremely messy, and you just get filthy, but the results are really worth it in the end when you see, you know, when it's all cleaned up and it's got that fresh undercoating on it. It just looks great. All right, so lots of videos coming up. We're going to do a full rebuild on this GM 10 bolt. I'm going to do an update on Matt's $1,000 square body. Matt's going down to Jacksonville this weekend to pick up another vehicle. I'm not going to tell you what it is yet, but we're going to check that out. And I promise you there's going to be a couple of Jeep updates coming soon. All right, really appreciate you guys checking out the video. Appreciate your support, and as always, thanks for watching.